Here's this week's Steam Code Raffle winner. I give a Steam code for a free game away with every video I do, and all you have to do to enter is leave a comment that wouldn't violate Twitter's terms of service. Make sure you have contact info in your YouTube profile so I can reach out to you. A complete list of games to choose from is in the description below. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a chance to win. Now on with the show. Bad publishers, bad practices, bad games, and good advice. Cutting words. Anyone who's seen my channel for long enough knows that I have no love for Konami. However, they have one of the strongest libraries of intellectual property in the gaming industry. That being said, you can imagine the mixed feelings I had when I heard that Konami was holding a press conference strictly to announce multiple Silent Hill projects. You see, I was of the impression that Konami didn't give half of a single solitary about their presence in the gaming world anymore, at least based off of their modern output. I have to acknowledge that Konami is at least competent when it comes to re-releasing and porting titles from the 16-bit era and earlier. Things like the Castlevania collection are well done, but the chief issue is they don't have to put any effort into creating anything new. When looking at the games that they've made in the last couple years, you can understand why they don't have faith that anything they do will be good anymore. At the very least, most of their games have been competent in gameplay mechanics, but predatory in monetization. At the worst, they're utterly incompetent, glitch-laden pieces of programmed pus that a competent publisher would not have let see the light of day, or so wrong-headed in their intentions that they are considered illegitimate bastardizations of the franchises from which they were born. E-Soccer, Metal Gear Survive, Contra Road Corps, etc. There's a fair argument that the last genuinely good game that they released was 7 years ago with Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain, in 2015, and even that has extensive coverage on how the last act was hacked off so they could kick it across the finish line. In doing research, I could only find one title that didn't seem to meet either of these requisites, and I'd wager that most of you have never heard of it. That being Getsu Fumiden Undying Moon. I haven't played it, but it's on my wish list, and if I eventually get around to it, I will be sure to make any corrections to previous statements if they do not stand true. The point I'm bringing up for this one is that Konami is utterly inadequate when it comes to marketing. To get back on the focus for this video, I hold out no hope that anything that Konami does will be good. That being said, I decided to do a rare thing and watch the live press announcements. Not that I was going in entirely blind. In addition to being inept at marketing and bankrupt from a creative standpoint, they are also willing to use legal methods as a cudgel in order to try and silence things they don't like. In fact, there's a good chance this video will disappear if they catch wind of it. Bunch of spineless snowflakes that make up their upper management, if you ask me. You see, Konami sent a DMCA claim notice for Silent Hill 2 Part 1. Even the most feeble-minded dullard should understand the issue of what I just relayed, unless it was their intention to have it leak in this manner, in which case they weaponized a legal process improperly at the expense of a streamer enjoying some of their previous work. So I set myself down, turned on my camera, and decided to record my live response. Of course, I was not going to stream that. I'm a fan of terminal montage videos, and I wholeheartedly stand behind his position of reaction videos being bad and lazy. I just wanted to have some of my initial reactions on reference so I could use them for illustrative purposes. Upon the start of the announcements, I then remember why I don't tend to watch these things live too often. They are exercises in hype-mongering. It's a bunch of mouthpieces constantly filleting each other in order to make whatever they're getting prepared to sell look as appealing as possible. I learned better in the era of Alpha Protocol, Need for Speed the Run, and Star Fox Zero that companies will promise the world, but fall flat on delivery and could only look on in pity as throngs of masses tore garments in fury when given things like Fallout 76, No Man's Sky, and Cyberpunk 2077. So as the video conference played on, I could only feel my irritation growing as these individuals showed off next to nothing beyond pre-release build footage, pre-rendered trailers, and directors looking to camera basically saying, here's a thing that we hope will exist one day. Let's go through each of the announcements and dissect why, while I would like the stuff to be good, I don't hold out hope that it will be. First up is the most substantive part of the presentation, the Silent Hill 2 remake being developed by Bloober Team. For the sake of transparency, I don't have much of a strong impression on Bloober Team. I know they've been working in the survival horror space for a while now, and I'm also aware that their track record of storytelling, symbolism, and takeaway messages has been of a, let's say charitably, mixed bag. Now, Silent Hill 2's metaphors and storytelling have been dissected to death, so I'm not going to do that here. I just have to wonder with Bloober Team's track record if they're going to make subtle design decisions or choices that may undermine the original intention. Secondly, one thing that concerned me from the brief snippets of gameplay that were visible was the notion that they were potentially adjusting combat mechanics. This should be considered worrisome. The combat mechanics of Silent Hill 2 are rather clunky and leave you feeling rather endangered, even when armed. I'm hoping that they don't fix this because the empowerment is antithetical to what I would argue is the best kind of survival horror. If you feel confident that you can get through an interaction unscathed, then it removes a significant amount of tension. Then again, this is merely speculation, and until it's in my hands, I won't know the level of quality they've thrown into this. In all honesty, Konami handing off development of their franchises to other studios is probably the best move that they can make, since they are clearly clumsy at their own endeavors. The second game they announced was Silent Hill Townfall. Given everything in this was just a pre-rendered trailer or announcement of the intention to make another game, I'm going to combine all three other announced games into this category and specify a title if a point only applies to that one. So here's the big point. They're all pre-rendered trailers. They show nothing substantive or reflective of gameplay or the final product, and are merely the presentation of a concept. I can think of cool stuff too. Imagine a port of Rock Band Blitz with the option to make your own customizable tracks with song libraries that you have. Imagine Nintendo releasing all the original Game Boy cartridge Pokemon games in a single compilation on a Nintendo Switch cartridge. Imagine Konami writing an apology letter to Hideo Kojima for the way they treated him in his final days at the studio. Do these not all sound like wonderful things? Well, I'm not capable of delivering these things. And those that would have the ability to deliver stuff like that, do you think they have the willingness or the aptitude? And even if they have both of those, who's to say those would end up being successful in what they're intending? By all means, express interest. Don't be afraid to pay attention to something being developed with all the hope that it will be good. Just also maintain awareness that whatever is being created may be out of reach through technical restrictions, monetary limits, or the capability of individual creators. Don't invest anything into a game until it's in your hands and you can try it yourself. By conferring psychological and emotional baggage into the expectation that something will be good before you ever have a chance to experience it, you're setting yourself up for disappointment, or at the very best, the maintenance of a psychological status quo. On a final note for general parts, I understand that the Silent Hill games being developed are being done so by third-party studios, with Konami just acting as the publisher. To me, this is neither good or bad, but it is worth noting that of all the Silent Hill games, the last one made by Konami themselves was Silent Hill 4 on the PlayStation 2. Every single other game after that was made by outside studios, with wildly mixed results. Now for a couple specific game points. Silent Hill Ascension. From a mechanical standpoint, I know that things like this do work with titles such as Dead by Daylight and Friday the 13th. However, given that it's a multiplayer experience, I'm not expecting the same emotional depth. Remember, Silent Hill is intended to be a metaphorical exploration of the protagonist's past and psyche. Things like Friday the 13th and other 4v1 survival co-op games are more meant to emphasize the B-horror movie vibe of, oh, look at the spooky monster. Pass. Then there's Silent Hill F. Silent Hill, but in a 1960s Japanese village. Okay. I could probably write an interesting setting for a Silent Hill game. Any environment can be made scary through the proper methodology. Let me again reinforce this. A teaser trailer is useless for a discerning individual to say what the game will actually be like. Now for the things that really pissed me off. They announced another Silent Hill movie. I don't care all that much, but I do remember watching the first one, and I thought the horror was juvenile and shock-based, as opposed to subtle and psychological. And they got the same director to make it. I haven't seen the second movie, and I probably never will. In fact, I give so little of a shit to analyze this further, that I'm just going to conclude this section and my sentiments by putting the sign that I faced a camera while the stream was going, so I could go off and do something more productive, like push-ups. Or masked. Finally, I think it's incredibly appropriate that Konami goes out of their way to devote time in the middle of an announcement stream detailing the return of one of their long-dormant franchises to hawk merchandise. It may not be as tacky as their pachinko machines, but I think it puts their intentions front and center that their desire is to make money, not art. I get that they are a business, but if the art is good, the money will follow. Usually, anyway. We know how bad Konami is at marketing their these days. I think I've gotten most of my big points out of the way that pertain to this conference, so I'll move on to the closing. Konami's upper decision makers are lick-spittle-spewing ignoramuses that are beholden to currency. Their track record has established that they don't like dealing with creatives because they hold their work to higher standards as opposed to being willing to just kick something out the door when it's in a minimum shippable state. What makes it more galling is that they were willing to attach the faces of Akira Yamaoka and Masahiro Ito. Then again, the fact that these are being made by external studios gives more understanding to the prospect that artists are willing to work on these projects. But Konami's abusive and vindictive tactics for Hideo Kojima will forever cause anything that they have in their hands to come under strict scrutiny by myself and others that remember. I likely won't be buying any of these at launch unless one of two things happen. The people in charge of alienating Kojima and effectively imprisoning him within the corporate building where he worked come out and issue an apology for the behavior, or they allow PT to come back onto the storefront so that fans may continue to experience it at their leisure. However, I'm grounded enough to realize that the likelihood of that happening is about as likely as my channel hitting 1 million subs, so I won't hold my breath. Konami's executives, given their history of business decisions and willingness to alienate their fan bases, I can only see as agents of avarice, derisive to their own properties, contemptuous to their creators, and flippant to their devotees, lacking integrity to the point where if they believe that any of these projects won't make them a suitable amount of profit, then they will cast them with their visionaries aside without a second thought. Unskilled in their craft, yet somehow in charge of some of the most beloved expressions in the medium. They are cruel, they are vapid, and they are gluttonous, and they are the ones that are ultimately in charge of Silent Hill. I went out of my way to buy a thesaurus, strictly to increase my lexicon of insults at Konami when making this video.
Thanks.
I can hardly parse into discernible language my disdain for this company. Those who've seen my previous videos will know that I tend to censor vulgar material to a minor degree out of personal choice. However, given the intensity of my resentment to the mouth breathers that run this corporation, I want these 2 words to go uncensored, unabated, and if a PG-13 movie can get away with one, then so can I. Fuck Konami!
Okay, I got it. I'll be careful.
I'll end with a mild shift in tone. I don't want any of these games to be bad. I would love to be wrong about any of this. I reserve judgment on anything until it can be thoroughly analyzed. If you're a fan of Silent Hill, cool. So am I. But don't be a sycophant. And don't be a dick to the studios that just happen to be working on the Silent Hill games. I hope that what they make is fantastic, and it's fair to say that if they are, then it's likely in spite of directives that Konami gave them. Some call me cynical for not expecting that anything will be good. I'm not cynical. I'm a realist. I expect the worst, but I hope for the best.